Hi there, welcome to this week's episode of Magis Moments. In our series so far, we've spent a good deal of time in several weeks steeping in God's love for us, getting an understanding that it's unconditional and personal, and that we're called to share His love and in a personal way. This is the backdrop, this is the lens through which the rest of the exercises stem, so it's a great foundation to remember. The next major segment of the spiritual exercises is to begin to contemplate how we draw away from that love. We've talked about this a little bit in previous episodes when we talked about the disordered attachments, what pulls us away from that hub of love. But we're going to continue on that track to contemplate what in our life moves us away from that love, that separates, divides, isolates, makes us feel shame-filled, moves us away from feeling love and faith and hope. So to do this contemplation, I'm going to recommend that we use what a late Jesuit, Walter Burgart, wrote in one of his reflections on contemplation. He called it a long, loving look at the real. So we're going to break down that framework a little bit as we consider contemplating these separations, these disconnections, these divides from God's love, which in our Catholic tradition we call sin. So looking at our sinful nature, which, by the way, because we are human and because we have free will, is inescapable. There'll be times in our lives when we turn away from God, but God doesn't abandon us. That initial foundation that we steeped in at the beginning of our series, He's always there to call us back. He wants nothing more than to help us get rid of those things that isolate us and turn us away from Him. So long, loving look at the real as we contemplate our sins, our separations, our disconnections. The long, meaning it's not an instantaneous, quick thing. We have to make an investment. Just like we're investing and listening to how we're personally called to love, we've got to invest the time to consider how we are turning away and when we are turning away. So putting that commitment into it. Loving, trying the best that we can to come at this from the framework of God's unconditional love, His full acceptance, His boundless mercy. So as we take a look at what isolates us, separates us, divides us, where our sins are, we try to do it without being judgy or critical. Because if that's our perspective as we're taking this look, then we're not gonna go there, or we're gonna get so turned away from God's love. So keeping that perspective of being loving, compassionate, forgiving, non-judgmental as we look at our sinful tendencies. Look at the real. So long, loving, look at the real. We have to keep it real. Even though this is a weighty concept, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. So we look at our everyday routines. We look at our everyday patterns, the thoughts that come into our day, the feelings that we have in our day. We look at what's real for us. We notice what pulls us away, what moves us, turns us away from God's love. We note those, we work on those, we go to confession for those, we continuously pray for those. Long, loving look at the real. I invite you to practice with this perspective, always under that focus, that foundation of God's boundless love and mercy. Thanks for listening.